What if the single biggest cause of wrinkles is something you walk through every morning on your way to get coffee? The sun emits two types of ultraviolet light that reach your skin: UVB, which burns, and UVA, which penetrates deep into the dermis. UVA makes up roughly 95% of all UV radiation that hits you on a given day. Scientists call UV-caused skin damage photoaging, and it's categorically different from normal aging. A 1992 study by dermatologist Daryl Rigel estimated that up to 90% of visible facial aging comes from UV exposure, not from birthdays. Your skin has a structural layer called the dermis. Inside it, collagen fibers act like a mattress spring system. They keep skin firm, bouncy, and smooth. UVA radiation is precisely the right wavelength to reach and disrupt those springs. When UVA photons hit skin cells, they excite molecules into producing reactive oxygen species, unstable atoms that immediately attack nearby proteins. Think of them as tiny wrecking balls your skin never ordered but can't refuse delivery on. Those reactive oxygen species trigger enzymes called matrix metalloproteinases, MMPs, molecular scissors. A 1996 study by dermatologist John Voorhees and his team at the University of Michigan, published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology, confirmed that UV exposure activates MMPs within minutes of sun contact, at doses too low to cause visible redness. You don't need a sunburn for this damage to accumulate. Every low-level UVA exposure, a walk to the car, a seat by a window, fires up MMPs. The damage is invisible. It compounds daily across decades. The most striking evidence comes from a twin study by dermatologist Bauman Guyaran and colleagues at Case Western Reserve University, published in Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery in 2009. Analyzing identical twins with different sun habits, the team found that the twin with higher lifetime UV exposure consistently showed more wrinkles, deeper lines, and thinner skin, regardless of diet or stress. But no example makes photoaging more visceral than Bill McElligott, a truck driver whose 2012 case was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. After 28 years of driving, the left side of his face, the window side, had aged dramatically more than his right. Standard car windshields block UVB but transmit up to 70% of UVA. Side windows are often untreated glass that blocks almost nothing. McElligott's case proved that commuting without protection is a decades-long slow exposure experiment. So sunscreen must be the obvious fix, and it is. But here's the twist. SPF, the number on every bottle, only measures protection against UVB. It tells you nothing about UVA protection unless the label specifically says broad spectrum. SPF stands for sun protection factor. An SPF of 30 times longer to burn than unprotected skin. SPF 30 blocks about 97% of UVB rays. SPF 50 blocks 98%. The jump in protection narrows sharply above SPF 30. Chemical sunscreen filters like avobenzone absorb UV photons and convert that energy into harmless heat. The molecule acts like a tiny shock absorber. It catches the energy before it can trigger the reactive oxygen cascade inside your skin cells. Avobenzone is the only FDA-approved chemical filter that covers the full UVA spectrum, which is why you'll find it on most broad-spectrum formulas. Mineral filters, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, work by physically scattering and reflecting UV photons away from the skin surface. Tiny mirrors sitting on top of your skin, deflecting radiation before it ever gets a chance to enter. Here's where the real-world numbers get uncomfortable. The FDA's SPF testing standard uses 2 milligrams of product per square centimeter of skin. Most people apply roughly a quarter of that amount, which means their actual protection is a fraction of what the label promises. Proper coverage for your face and neck requires roughly a nickel-sized dollop, about a quarter teaspoon. Most people apply a thin smear that covers half that. That habit quietly erodes the protection they think they have, every single day. Chemical filters degrade under UV exposure. Avobenzone loses significant efficacy within 2 hours of sun contact. a process called photodegradation that breaks the molecule down faster in direct sunlight than in a lab drawer. That's why dermatologists universally recommend reapplication every 2 hours outdoors. The filter is being consumed as it works. Remember those MMP scissors? Sunscreen breaks the chain at the first link. No UV photons reaching the dermis means no reactive oxygen spike, no MMP activation, no collagen being cut. The entire cascade never starts. The clearest clinical proof arrived in 2013. A randomized controlled trial, published in Annals of Internal Medicine, tracked 903 Australians over 4.5 years. Those assigned daily sunscreen showed 43% less skin aging than the control group. But daily sunscreen alone isn't the complete picture. What about the UV that still gets through? Even SPF 50 allows 2% of UVB through, and no filter blocks 100% of UVA. Something else has to handle the overflow. This is where topical antioxidants enter. Vitamin C, specifically L-ascorbic acid at concentrations above 10%, neutralizes reactive oxygen species before they trigger MMPs. It's the cleanup crew for the UV that gets past the bouncer. A 2005 study by Sheldon Pinnell at Duke University demonstrated that topical L-ascorbic acid reduced UV-induced oxidative damage in human skin by a statistically significant margin compared to vehicle control. Sequence matters. L-ascorbic acid destabilizes when mixed directly with certain chemical filters. Dermatologists recommend applying antioxidant serum first, letting it absorb fully, then layering sunscreen on top as the final barrier. The order isn't aesthetic preference, it's chemistry, and skipping it cuts the efficacy of both products. A persistent myth holds that people with deeper skin tones don't need sunscreen because melanin is protective. Melanin does provide a natural SPF equivalent of roughly 2 to 4, meaningful, but nowhere near sufficient to prevent photoaging or UV-induced DNA damage. UVA penetrates cloud cover and standard glass almost unimpeded. A 2019 report in the British Journal of Dermatology found that up to 80% of UVA radiation reaches ground level on overcast days. Your skin doesn't know it's cloudy outside. Does the SPF in your foundation count? Technically, yes, but foundation is applied far too thinly to deliver its labeled SPF. A 2001 study by Brian Diffie and Peter Farr, published in the British Journal of Dermatology, found that cosmetic products with SPF are typically applied at densities that deliver only 20 to 30% of their stated protection in real-world use. Retinol, the gold standard anti-aging ingredient, stimulates collagen synthesis, partly reversing the MMP damage UV caused. But retinol degrades in sunlight and increases photosensitivity. It's a nighttime repair tool that only holds its gains if sunscreen guards the progress made. Think back to Bill McElligot's left cheek. 28 years of window-side UVA. That's not a beach vacation story, it's the commute. Which means the inverse is also true. 28 years of daily broad-spectrum SPF rewrites that outcome completely. There's also a compelling financial argument. A single session of laser resurfacing to address photoaging costs between $1,000 and $5,000. A year of daily broad-spectrum SPF 30 costs roughly $30. Prevention isn't just biology, it's arithmetic. Of every anti-aging intervention studied, retinoids, peptides, growth factors, lasers, daily broad-spectrum sunscreen has the largest and most replicated evidence base for preventing skin aging. A 2021 position statement from the American Academy of Dermatology explicitly identifies it as the single most evidence-supported intervention for photoaging prevention, citing decades of randomized trial data. Not the most glamorous answer. Photoaging isn't a future problem, it's a present accumulation. According to the Skin Cancer Foundation's 2020 report on lifetime UV accumulation, most people have already received nearly 25% of their lifetime UV exposure by age 18. The meter has been running since childhood. One more detail that tends to stop people cold. A 2014 study in JAMA Dermatology found that office workers who sat within 3 feet of a window received enough UVA over a standard workday to accelerate photoaging without ever stepping outside. The commute isn't even the whole story. The desk is part of it too. Broad spectrum SPF 30, a nickel-sized amount, applied every morning regardless of weather. That one daily habit is the closest thing dermatology has to a time machine, and it costs less than your coffee.